In this project we're going to be creating a 3D character using some basic 2D character design sheets. Now before I start, there's always that initial setup stage that we go through with any project in Lightwave. So I'm going to start by making a new folder in here and call it cartoon character or cartoon character. Okay. Now what I want to do is I want to copy some files from the resources that come with this tutorial, and it's found in the resources folder, character. There are two files in here, one's called anime front and anime side. If we have a look at these, I'll double click to open that up. You see it's like a Japanese style 2D cartoon character. So we've got a side view and we've got a front view here. Now it's a pretty simple looking character, but it's going to give us some experience in some really good simple techniques in creating any kind of character in Lightwave. So let's take these two files, let's select them. Okay, I'm going to copy them, and I'm going to go back to my cartoon character folder. I'm going to make an images folder in here. Okay, images, and I'm going to paste them in here. There they are. I'm also going to go back one layer, I'm going to make the folder we always need here, and that's the objects folder, because of course we're modeling. And that's set up my content directory. So I've got my images and my images folder, I've got my objects folder ready to go. Okay, so cartoon character. So I'm going to go back to modeler, and I'm going to go over options, and I'm going to click on content directory, and I'm going to set the content directory to my cartoon character content directory. Click OK, and model is ready to go. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to do what I always do. I'm going to go and take those two images I've got. I'm going to set them up as background reference images. So I'm going to place one in the back view. I'm going to place that anime front here, and I'm going to place the anime side in this view. So let's go and do that. Let's press D for display options. Click on the backdrop tab, and then what I'm going to do is bottom left, bot L, this is this viewport. I'm going to go image, load image. Here I'm going to put the anime front image, and there it is. Move this to one side a bit. I'm going to set the image resolution to 256, and I'm going to knock the contrast rate down, knock the brightness rate down as well, so it just gives me this really dark grey sort of anime character here, just so I can see my wireframes on top. Okay, I'm going to go bottom right, and I'm going to go images, load image, anime side. Click open, knock contrast and brightness right down to nothing, and click 256 for the image resolution, and then click OK. If we zoom into this, you notice that we have they're pretty well lined up, looks pretty good. One thing in here, notice that the character is not centered up, so what I might do is I might just nudge this picture, this backdrop picture across just to center it in the viewport. So D for display, backdrop, it's the bottom left, and center, I think it's the top one here, we'll find out in a sec. Nope, that's the vertical movement. It's the second one. So the top one is up and down, the second one is left and right. And I'm just going to slide it across about, looks like about 12 millimeters until it's sort of centered down the middle here. Okay, now just make sure the other one looks alright. I'm pretty happy with that. Once I've got these two images set up, I'm going to go presets, and I'm going to select save all backdrops, and in cartoon character I'm going to save anime backdrop, just so next time I come into modeler I can just come in here and go presets, load backdrop, and I can load that straight in, all set up, ready to go. So click OK, and we're ready to get started. When it comes to characters, I'm a big fan of what we call box modeling, and what I'm going to do in here is I'm going to use box modeling to create the body of this character. So I'm going to start with the box tool, and in the back viewport here I'm going to drag out a box from the top of the shoulders here to the bottom of the skirt. Okay, in the side view I'm going to drag the box out to the furthest of the back and the front. And what I need to do here is I want to split the box down the center here and down the center here. Now the keyboard shortcut for that is to move the mouse cursor into this viewport and press the right arrow. We'll add a segment down here. In this viewport, move the mouse over here and press the right arrow again, and it puts a segment this way. Now if you want to do this numerically, if you thought, well, arrow keys, so if I push the left arrow, it takes it away, right arrow adds it in. Okay. If I want to add segments up and down, I use the up and down arrows to add them. Same in this viewport, and so forth. Now if you want to add these numerically, click on the numeric options down here, and you can just add the segments in here, X, Y, and Z. Okay, so it should be 2, 1, 2. Now you're probably wondering, why am I, push the return key, why am I setting these segments here? Well, it's because the human body is not square. Now if I was to hit the tab key, because I'm going to be sub-patching this object, now this is like it looks like a pencil eraser. It's got that sort of like round box shape to it. And the human body just isn't, well, it just isn't square, unless you happen to be a robot. And in this case I'm not making a robot, so point selection mode. In this top view I'm going to select the corner points, like so. Okay, zoom into that. And use the H for stretch. And I'm going to go into the center here, click and drag to the left and down. Now the whole idea is to basically generate a nice sort of round shape here, sort of a cylindrical shape, because it's a lot more organic looking. Now once I've done that, drop the stretch tool, and let's unselect those points. I'm going to unsubpatch this for now because I'm going to work in just standard polygons for a while. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by sculpting this this shape a little more. So I'm going to go to polygon selection mode, and I'm going to select the polygons on the bottom here, like so. And I'm going to use a picture in the background as a guide. And use H for stretch, and I'm going to stretch these in a little, and also in a little down here. Pretty happy with that. Okay, and what I generally like to do when I'm modeling a character, especially the body, is I like to go through and I like to look for areas on the background image that where you can sort of see, well, okay, there's a big change in shape. It sort of goes here, sort of bulges out here around the old posterior, and then sort of goes in, because your back tends to be curved like this, and then comes out again, and you sort of got like a wider area here, thinner area here, wider area here, top of the skirt here, and so forth. So the same in the front. I can see it sort of narrows out here, widens here. So I'm going to use that as my guide. I'm going to use the knife tool, or Shift K, and say, okay, well, it needs to be a bit wider here. And if I right click, I can make another knife, and I'll say I want to make another knife here where it gets quite narrow, and here where it gets a bit wider. I'm going to start by cutting 3 slices in here, and then I'm going to select the point selection mode. I'm going to select the points, use the stretch tool, and I'm going to basically just stretch them in both viewports using the picture as my guide. So here we can see these points. I'll select them, H for stretch, bring it in fact, take it from the front, bring it in a little bit further like so, and stretch tool in the front view here, go to the center and bring it in like so. Okay, here this doesn't look too bad actually, so maybe a little bit of a stretch in like so. In the front, stretch it in to here. Okay, and obviously the top looking a bit too wide there, so H for stretch, stretch it in, and stretch it in to around the neck. Okay, notice it has sort of misaligned a bit there, so I'm going to move it across like so, maybe across the center. That's a bit better. Now the shelf sort of around your chest tends to be sloped. It's not flat like this. So I'm going to use the rotate tool on these top points. I'm just going to rotate it. So on that sort of an angle. That's looking pretty good. So that's started to rough out the shape I want for my character's body. Hit the tab key. Sort of getting there. Not looking too bad. Good starting point. Okay, so what you can do is you can tab it to get you into this sort of like subpatch mode where you can sort of see the form a little bit better. Okay, you can sort of see that as soon as you subpatch, things become a little smaller. So I've gone from polygon mode into subpatch mode, and I'm just going to use subpatching, the subpatch version, just as my guide. Now that looks pretty good. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. This one needs to be a bit wider by the looks. Looks a bit better. Okay, the chest area needs to be a bit wider here. Okay, obviously needs to be come out a bit further here. Okay, now the bottom tends to be open because there's a skirt. So I'm going to select these polygons at the bottom. I'm going to actually delete those. So push delete. That's not looking too bad. That's looking a lot better. I'm pretty happy with that. Now what I want to do is I want to make sure that I've got sort of a bit of a shelf going on here just under the upper outfit. Now rather than modeling two different pieces of outfit, which I could have done, what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to cut a few fine. I'm just going to cut one first to represent the top of the skirt. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select these polygons. Okay, and I'm going to go and cut again just below that, like so. Okay, we go point selection mode, select these points under the skirt, H for stretch, and bring that in a little. Okay, this isn't going too far because I want to maintain the shape there. Now you notice that it's a little bit blobby and undefined, so what we need to do is just in the middle here, I'm going to do a bandsaw pro just to slice right through the center. Bandsaw pro, and it helps tighten that up. Okay, pretty happy with that. That's looking a lot better. Okay, now obviously I'm going to have to go through and sculpt some of these a little bit more. H for stretch. Okay. Okay, and bring that kind of in. Go to point selection mode. Might have to bring these points down the bottom out a little bit too. Okay, it's pretty good. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, we're starting to get a pretty quick idea what this is starting to look like. It didn't take too long at all, and this is what I like so much about this modeling technique, is the fact that you can bash these things out pretty quick using just a simple box and some bevels. You know, just to get the sort of rough out the shape really quickly. Okay, stretch that out just a little more. Okay, bring that down so it's a little tighter. Bring that a little more, that's pretty good. Okay, these points here, again I'm just using sort of like just looking by eye to make sure I'm getting things looking about right. Okay, so again using the pictures as my my reference. Okay, you might need to cut a few more details in here, for instance in here perhaps. I want to make another slice so you can sort of shape the top of the breast area there. So bandsaw pro, just to cut through the center. You could use the knife tool as well. Okay, take these points, point selection mode, pull that back a little. Okay, now the reason I also cut here is so I can get 1, 2, 3, 4 polygons on the side here I can use to extend the arms out from. Okay, so let's bring these out a little more. Okay, I think I'm looking pretty good down here. Pretty good down here. I want to bring that in just a tad. Okay. And maybe just taper that skirt in a tiny bit. Like that. Okay. And that's not looking too bad. So it's looking pretty good so far. So at this point I'm going to go File, Save Object As, or Save Object, since it's the first save. And say generic. Actually, no, don't call it generic body, that's a bit of a silly name. Let's call it character version 1. Just so we can save as we go. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some arms in here. So these are the polygons I'm going to grow some arms out from. We'll come back to that in the next video. So see how you go with just getting this body laid out, and I'll see you in the next video. In this video I'm going to create the arms for the character. Now what I want to do with this character is I don't want to sculpt it exactly like the pictures in the background. I want to use the pictures in the background as a guide to proportions and look, but what I want to do is I want to model it so I can use it for animation later on. Now to create a character for animation, you really don't want the arms sculpted down by the sides like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select these 8 polygons, 4 on each side. T for move. I'm going to move these sort of to the back of the character, to where the shoulders are here. Okay. And I'm going to use the drag tool to just drag the points around a little. Just around them a bit, like so. Okay. And then I'm going to hit E for extended plus. Okay, just create some more polygons. H for stretch. And I'm going to stretch these out a little. Now I'm going to use the symmetry tool, okay, down the bottom here next to polygon selection mode, to just let me hold down control to constrain, come on this side, and click and drag just to flatten these out a little more. Okay, so it's giving me the start of the shoulders of my character. Okay, now the thing is with characters and in general is a lot of people will build these characters and they'll assume that the shoulders are inside the body, like in here, when in actual reality your shoulders actually hang off the side of your torso. So they don't actually swivel your arms from just inside your chest area here. So I need to create some shoulder areas for the character here. So to do this, after I've extended those, turn off symmetry mode. I'm not a big fan of symmetry mode because it can cause some tools not to behave the way I like. Okay, I'm going to go in here. I'm just going to round these a bit more. Okay, as you work, it's always a good idea to just go through and tidy things up, because as you cut and dice and slice in subpatch mode, you'll notice things start to become a bit squarer and a bit less organic. You start to lose some of that nice smooth form that you had going on before. Okay, so I've got the shoulders starting to happen there. Now you notice that I'm starting to lose a bit of the shape in the chest here. Okay, starting to do this weird sort of pointy thing. So I'm going to select these polygons. I'm going to just click and drag some of these points back out. Okay, like so. Okay, just to flatten that out a bit further. Okay. Okay, so I'm just going to look around as I'm modeling and just make sure I'm not starting to lose the shape of my character. Okay, drag that in. And so on. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. Okay. Now, shoulders tend to pull out at the back. You notice that these are starting to pull in the back here. like that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go Control T for drag, and I'm going to start just sculpting the shoulder blades out a little. So pull them out a little bit. Now the center point's in the middle here. Okay, your spine tends to be sunken a little, so I'm going to just drag the center in a little. And that's not looking too bad actually. I quite like that. Okay, I might drag this out a little. So this is sort of the back of the neck. Okay, I'm starting to lose this form just a tiny bit. Okay, so you want to make sure you don't drag things too far to start making everything look too different than the picture. Okay, but a little bit of manipulation like that helps define the shape of the body. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. Gives me a bit of a shoulder blade thing going on. Okay, might want to pull some of these points up here out. See these ones here. Control T. Okay, pull this one in. And again, it's all about just keeping an eye on things as you go. And I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, that's looking actually pretty good. Okay, so now that I've got that going a little bit better, I'm going to go back to my arms. I'm going to select these polygons again, go E for extender. Switch on the symmetry mode just temporarily, which basically what happens with symmetry turned on is it will actually mirror whatever you do on the positive side of X to whatever's on the negative side of X. So if I use a move tool and I move it out, okay, it'll move the other way as well. So once I've done that, unselect. Now the problem is, once we, as we can see here, is as we start to modify and pull points around in subpatch mode, things start to change shape from being nice and round to be this sort of weird flat-sided thing. So again, come back, double check. Okay, start pulling points around. Now a lot of times it's because the points are so close together. So you can pull them apart a little more to help sort of like soothen or smoothen the flow or the nice organic feel of the character. Okay, that's pretty good. That's not too bad. Okay, so I'm going to continue with this. I'm going to select these arms yet again. E, you notice that the shape changes yet again. T for move, switch on symmetry of course, and we'll move them out like so. I'm going to leave them about that far out, turn off symmetry. Actually, it doesn't really matter what if they have symmetry on or not. And I'm going to rotate it from the shoulder here, fold it down just so I can see if it matches the length of the arms. I can see it's not long enough, so Control Z to undo that. Okay, I'm going to take symmetry mode back on. T for move, and move these out a little bit further. Y for rotate. Okay, a little bit too long. Bring them back in a little. Y for rotate. A little bit too short. T for move. Just out. That'll do. Y for rotate from the shoulder. Okay, it still feels a little bit short. Okay, before it was a little bit too long, so Y for rotate. That's about right. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete these polygons because they're the ends of the sleeves of the shirt. Okay, I'm going to turn off symmetry mode. In fact, I'm going to leave symmetry mode on for a sec. We go to point selection mode. I want to flatten the ends of these sleeves off. So I'm going to use H for stretch, hold down Control, and on the positive side of X, click and drag, just to flatten that down. Okay, I'm also going to taper it in a little in this view. See that it's not round anymore? So I need to come in here with the drag tool and just drag these out to round these back into a circular shape, because that's what the sleeves or the arms should be. It's just this whole sub-patching thing that's starting to throw things out as we go. Okay. I'm going to go in here and have a look at point selection mode on these. Again, same problem here. Let's pull these out. Okay, turn off symmetry because it's not really doing anything for me. Control T. Pull this out. Pull this out. Pull this down. Pull this down. Okay, this can go up just a little. Yeah, it's looking pretty good to me. Okay. And I'm pretty happy with that. Now I've fixed one side of the character. So what I'm going to do is, rather than go through here and try and fix up this other side, is I'm going to actually come in and I'm going to say, well, you know, this side looks better than this side, so let's go V on the keyboard for set value. Let's set the X to 0. Now make sure you've got symmetry turned off when you do this, and click OK. That'll flatten all those polygons down to the center, and we can delete those. So we've got like half a body here. Now what I can do is I can spend a little time finessing and cleaning up this half a body until I'm happy with it. And then what I can do is, once I'm happy, is I can mirror that across. Okay, so I'm going to go Y for rotate and rotate the shoulder back down. Okay, it's pretty good. Okay, elbow's about there. So elbow's about halfway along. We can use the knife tool. Say, okay, about there. I'm going to make a slice. This we're going to have the elbow on the sleeve. And then I'm going to right click and do one on one side, one on the other, just to add a bit of definition on either side of the elbow. I'm going to select the points down the center here. Okay, this is where the elbow is. Okay, and I'm going to move it back like so, just to sort of help give a bit of form to the elbow. H for stretch. Stretch it in. Stretch it down just a tiny bit, not a lot, because you don't really want to do too much of a pinch there. And then these points here, these ones on this side, I'm going to go Y for rotate. I'm going to spread these out a little, and H for stretch, just to pump them out. There's a tiny bit of shape to the arm, to the sleeve, give it a bit of definition. Y for rotate, maybe pan that out a little. H for stretch, like so. And I might taper this in just a little bit. Okay. And I'm pretty happy with that. It's looking pretty good. So let's say I'm happy with what I've done so far. Okay, what I might do here is I want to add a bit of thickness to the inside of the sleeve. Let's select all the points around here, or you could select the edges if you prefer, and go E for extender, H for stretch. Let's just stretch it in and in just to inset a bit. E again to do another extender. Extend those edges in like that a little bit. So we're starting to form a little bit of a lip on the end here, like that. E for extender. You can do it in just a tiny bit and in a bit there to add another lip, and then from here just bring it in a little like that. Then E one more time. Okay, it's just to bring in a bit of a cuff to give the fabric a bit of thickness. Okay, because polygons don't have thickness by default. So we need to model in a little bit of thickness here, just so we can sell the illusion that this is a garment made out of a piece of clothing, or a piece of thick cloth. So it's not one polygon thick. Now once we've done that, I'm pretty happy with that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mirror that back across. So I've made one arm that looks really nice. I've got half a body that looks pretty good. I go up and I say multiply, and I use mirror X. And because I split it right down the perfect center, mirror X should combine them back in the center for us, because it does a merge points after it's mirrored. Now I'm going to do what I did with the sleeve to the bottom of the skirt, because the bottom of the skirt is also a piece of fabric. So either use the point selection or edge selection. I'm going to use edge selection because I can. E for extender, H for stretch. Go in a little, using the top view here just to bring in a bit of an edge. E again, just a little more, just to build that nice flat thick edge for my skirt. E again, in, and up just a tad, and E one more time, bring it up just to give the skirt some definition or some thickness. Okay, so I've got the body pretty much finished there. Now the last thing I need to do here is I need to just cut out a neck area. So I'm going to select these 4 polygons at the top. These look pretty good, like where the head should sit, and I'm going to hit the E key. Okay, what E will do, of course, is it will extend or create some more polygons in there. You see stretch tool in the top view here. Stretch it in, and I'm going to bring it down just a little. E again, T for move. I'm going to move it down into the outfit. Okay, and I'm actually going to delete these polygons because I don't need them. That sort of left me with a bit of a collar going on here. It's a little bit of a weird pinch at the back. So all I need to do here is select the points, T for move. Okay, bring that in. Now hopefully this area here will be hidden under some hair, but nonetheless I'm going to shape it anyway, just so it looks a bit more like a garment, and I'm pretty happy with that. So that's finished the body. So let's do a file, save incremental, save the next version, and we'll continue in the next video. The next step to creating the rest of the body is to work on the legs, perhaps, because the legs are pretty much just coming straight out the bottom of that skirt there. So I'm going to new layer, and I'm going to scroll down like so, and I should be able to make the leg the same way I made the body, and that's by using the box tool, drag it up, drag it out. You notice that it still has 2 segments by 2 segments, which is good, means I don't have to set that. Okay, and drag it out like so. Drop the box tool. Oops. Select the corner points in the top view here, and H for stretch. And again, because it's organic, we want to make sure we get sort of a cylinder thing going on here. Pretty happy with that. Okay. Now exactly the same process as we did with the body. Now you notice that the pictures aren't perfectly lined up. Now the reason is not because the pictures are wrong, it's the fact that when people draw pictures, they're not always 100%, you know, one-to-one flat orthographic views. So these feet are probably tapered in the front view, the way the artist drew them, whereas they're sort of flat in this view. So here's where we have to use a little bit of artistic license, or a little bit of guesstimation I should say, to sort of guess where things should sit. So I'm going to use a side view as my primary source of where the leg should be, and I'm going to use the knife tool and say, well, there's a knee, looks like the knee's about there, looks like the leg bulges about there. Okay, let's select the points, move these forward, select these points, H for stretch. Okay, just sculpt those out a little to give the leg some form. Take these points at the bottom, H for stretch, bring those in. Okay, in this view, I'm going to use the front view sort of roughly as a guide to how wide the leg should be. Okay, the knees should probably come in a little here, so I'm going to bring the kneecap area in just to add a bit of form to the leg shape. And these top points I'm going to move up. Okay, and maybe H for stretch, because your leg tends to thicken up as it gets to the thigh, and the thigh area is probably around here. So I could probably move these all the way up. H for stretch. And do something along the lines of something that looks a lot more like this. Okay, that looks a bit more like a leg. Okay, so here's the leg done. That was pretty easy. It's probably even easier than the body. Hit the tab key just to make sure things look alright. Now obviously I don't want the polygons on the bottom because that's the feet are gonna feed into a shoe. Okay, and also probably don't need the ones at the top either because they're actually under the clothing. So I'm going to remove the ends of my leg. Now what I will need to do is use the knife tool, put a bit more detail around the knee area here. So a couple of cuts, like so. Okay. And what I can do is I can just bring the points at the back of the knee, that's these 3 points, H for stretch, squeeze them in a little, bring them in a little just to bring in that crease, like so. And I'm going to call that almost finished. Now one thing I will do is, notice how the leg narrows down before it gets in the shoe. I'm going to cut just above the sock area here. Use the stretch tool and just sort of round, bring these in so you get more of that sort of round tapering sort of look like that. H for stretch in the side view, just bring it in a little. Pretty happy with that. Okay, so there's the leg done and dusted. Now if we combine it with our body, okay, it's looking pretty close to our sort of our 2D illustration version of our character. What I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of clone that leg by using the multiply mirror X. So we now have 2 legs, and it's looking pretty good. I'm going to go Shift S for save incremental, and I'll continue the next video and build the shoe to put on the end of the foot. So I'll see you shortly. Let's have a look at making a shoe to put on the end of the leg. So I'm going to go to a new layer here, and I'm going to use this side view as my primary source of reference because the front's a little bit simplistic and it's drawn a bit odd. I suspect that it's drawn in a semi-tilted sort of fashion here, so it looks like the feet are dipping down. It's sort of almost a 3D sort of approach, so it's not quite accurate to that, and that gives me more of a shoe shape to go on. So I'm going to start, same as I do with everything, a box. Okay, obviously I'm going to have to use the front view as a sort of rough guide to the width. Okay, drop the box tool. Do the usual, turn it into a cylinder type approach. Okay. You go T, move this down to where the shoe is. Now obviously we can take some of these points here, Y for rotate, H for stretch. Okay. Some of these points here, H for stretch. Gonna fatten that out a little. Okay. Now I need to take the polygons at the bottom here. E, T for move them down. H for stretch. Stretch it out to match this sort of a shoe type thing that's going here. E, T for move it down. H for stretch. Something like that. Like that. Okay, so it looks like a nice shoe type shape. Now obviously some of these aren't quite going to work, so I'm going to take some of these points and start sort of sculpting the shoe a little more. So get that shape a little bit better. Something along the lines of that. Not looking too bad. Now we're not going to spend a lot of time making a fancy shoe this way. If you're going to really get into creating a great sort of shoe type or a type of foot thing, you probably want to source some, find some shoes that look similar to your 2D character one, and spend a little time actually building a more detailed shoe based on sort of higher quality reference material. Okay. Okay, so hit the tab key. Okay, then we can use the subpatch version to scale it to fit. It's not looking too bad. It's a good basic shoe shape that sort of looks like the shoe. It's got this sort of shape going on. Now, one of the downsides we have here is that the way the shoe's constructed, it'd be nice if we're going to do some animation with this later on, if we could actually come in here and bend the toe, but we can't because the toe would bend around here, and this way the shoe's actually constructed, it's not redesigned to have like a toe area there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select a couple of polys here, and I go Control K. Now what Control K does is it does a thing called spin quads, and what spin quads is, it basically spins the join between two four-sided polygons. So I go Control K again. It's basically taking this edge that's shared between the two, and it's sort of shifting it from the endpoints from here to here. So Control K basically shifted the endpoints to these 2 points, and go Control K again, shifted it from here to here and from there to there. Control K shifts it back again. Now you notice that as we do this, it actually dynamically changes the feel or the flow of the geometry in here. So by doing it, I've basically gone from being this kind of thing to this kind of thing where I could have a toe across here. So let's do the other side. That's these 2 polygons. Control K a couple of times till we get something that looks a bit like this. Now it makes the shoe look, if we turn it to texture mode, looks a little bit weird and funky, a bit lumpy in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and say, well, okay, it'd be nice to have like a toe across there, so do a bit of a bandsaw pro multiply, bandsaw pro, pretty good. Then say, okay, well, but didn't want this weird lumpy thing going on, so it'd be nice if I still had that nice smooth shoe look. If I take these 2 polygons and go Control K, Control K once more, I can return it to what it looked like, but I've created this extra growth at the front here. Control K, cool. Okay. So, nice way of adding a bit of geometry in here. Okay. Let's take the polygons down this front here. Top of the shoe normally would be a little bit narrower. Bring it up a little, like so. Okay. Okay, so again, like I said, I'm not going to spend a lot of time making a fancy looking shoe here. E for extender to bring out a sole for this. Okay. Select the points along here. T for move, bring them up. Okay. And I'm going to say for now, this is enough shoe for my character. H for stretch. Bring it in. Bring it forward a little. Okay. The top now, the top is where the leg sticks in. That's this area here. So let's bring that up. That looks pretty good to me. Okay. Let's go E. Then we use the stretch tool. And the top view, stretch it in and down. E. T. Move it down. E. Move it down a bit more just to give it a bit of a lip at the top. And we can delete these polygons because I'm going to get the foot to stick in here. Okay. Okay, I'm going to move that across just a little. You can do that with the Alt key or the Opt key if you're on a Mac and use the arrow keys. Move the mouse into this viewport or this viewport and tap the arrow keys. Now we've sort of done that a little on our previous exercises, previous projects. And I'm going to tap it up in this view just to raise it a little more. like so. Okay, pretty happy with that. Okay, now obviously the leg's going to be a little bit longer, or we could be a little crafty. We could use the front view as a rough guide to bring it up a bit higher. And we could use Shift H, which is size, just a size a foot down. Okay, now you got to be careful because if I size it down too much, it's going to make it look a little bit wrong. Okay, select these polys at the top. Let's have a look at. Okay, I might bring it in just a little at the top here, the front. Okay, that's not too bad. I'm going to go to the leg layer, pick these points. I'm going to T for move. I'm going to move them down into the shoe. Okay, just so that foot, the leg and the shoe sort of combine together a bit better. Now, once I'm happy with the shoe, okay, which for now I am, you see mirror X to make two of them. Okay, combine them together. It's not too bad. It's very like sand shoes. Okay, put them together like that and go File, Save Incremental, and we'll continue on with the next step. We've got the basic fingers in place, and if you look at your real hand, you'll notice that they're not quite right yet. For a start, they need knuckles. So what we're going to do in this video is we're going to perhaps cut in some knuckles, but before I do that, I'm going to hit the tab key just to test these are going to look alright in subpatch mode. Okay. Now the first thing I see that isn't quite right is all the fingers still look quite square, like smooth square, but they're still square. So before I go too far, let's unselect that. I'm going to go in here and go polygon selection mode, select the tips of all the fingers. If I hold down the shift key and I tap the right square bracket, I could select the rest of the fingers like so. Okay. You go Control T for drag, hit the tab key so I can sort of see everything, and I'm going to just drag the corners in on each finger just to round them. Now you remember we did this for the body just to make sure it had a nice organic look. I'm going to do the same with the fingers just to prevent fingers from becoming too sort of square as we go, because as we cut the knuckles and all the other details in the fingers, it's going to make them squarer and chunkier. So it pays to go through as we go and just refine things, get them sort of like tidied up, get a nice organic sort of look to them all. Okay, organic is sort of round and smooth, not sort of robotic and square, unless you're making a robot, of course. You notice that after a while, well anyway, from my perspective, after a while you find that modeling tends to be a lot of tweaking, like this sort of thing. So you'll start modeling, then you spend a lot of time fine-tuning and adjusting and fine-tuning and adjusting and so forth. So I'm going to move these in. Okay, oops. Just to get the fingers, oh that looks pretty good. I'm not going to be too worried about getting them perfect. Hit the tab key to untab them. Okay. Unselect everything and hit tab, or should subpatch the entire hand. And that's looking a lot better. They're nice and sort of round, like so. I'm going to hit the tab key to unsubpatch that for a sec. Now, what I want to do is I want to cut the knuckles into these fingers. And the knuckles are approximately about a third down each finger. To do this, I'm going to use the knife tool. And by working in wireframe mode, when I knife through the fingers, I'm going to cut all the knuckles for all the fingers at the same time, which is going to save me a lot of extra work. Making individual fingers can be a pain. Now we could do individual fingers, but I like to work, I'm lazy, I like to get it done fairly quickly. Okay, so one knuckle about there. If we right click, we can put another knife cut about there. That's done the basic knuckles, but on the knuckles tend to be like lumped up in the top, and they have a crease along the bottom. So what I like to do is put two more cuts per knuckle, so one on each side of the knuckle, Go in here and I'm going to click, right click to make a cut. Now let go of the right mouse button. Let's adjust this cut by left clicking on the ends like so. And I want to cut it again. We'll right click here to put another cut. And I'll right click here to put another one. Now let go of the right mouse button. Use the left mouse to adjust. I'm going to taper it the other way. Okay, like so. Right click, put one about here, and drop the knife tool. And we've cut our knuckles into our fingers. Now the knuckles sort of, well, they're alright, but what we want to do is we want to go point selection mode, take the points at the bottom of the middle slice of the knuckles, go T for move, and move them up just to build the creases that we need under the fingers. Now at the top here, you might be wondering why I tapered these cuts. Well, at the top I want to make the knuckles, and the knuckles tend to be larger on the top, like pads, and small creases at the bottom. So I make it wider here, so these nice sort of big knuckle shaped or knuckle sized pads on the top. Select all the points at the top and go T for move. Oops, and move it up like so, just to give myself a bit of definition on the fingers, like so. Hit the tab key. Yeah, it's not looking too bad. It's a good start. And these fingers are nice and petite because this is, you know, a female character after all, and there's nice sort of feminine sort of fingers, or slim fingers. Now if you look at your real hand, you'll notice that the fingers don't all connect in a straight line like this, and they're also not all the same length. For instance, we've got our little finger here, which is the shortest one. It's also sort of connected on this sort of round sort of angle on the hand. They're not connected in a straight line at the top of your palm. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select each finger one by one. So I'm going to start doing the same technique. Select the polygons at the tip, hold down the shift key, tap the right square bracket key a couple of times until we get the whole finger like that. And I'm going to go shift H, which is the size tool. I'm going to go down to the, in fact I'm going to shift and right square bracket one more time. I'm going to just shrink this in by click and dragging to the left. Okay, just to size it down. I'm also going to go Y for rotate. And I'm going to rotate it out because we don't want them sort of jammed hard against each other. I'm going to spread them out a little so they look a bit more natural. I'm just going to move this down just a tad like so. Then I'm going to unselect the polys. Do the same for the next finger. This is the ring finger. Shift and right square bracket to select them down to the end. Shift H. Can be a little bit smaller. Not a lot smaller. In fact, it should be a lot bigger than the little finger. Y for rotate. Rotate it out. T for move. Y for rotate. Rotate back up a bit. Yeah, that's the one. Just to sort of get it going like that. It's looking pretty good. The middle finger I'm going to leave because the middle finger is your biggest finger. But for this finger, which is your index finger, do the same again. Shift H. Make it just a little smaller. It's about the same length as your ring finger. Y for rotate. And I'm just going to rotate it out just a little. And that gives me my fingers. Hit the tab key. That's not looking too bad. I mean, there could be a few improvements in here. If you want to, you could go and find a good reference of a real hand and actually use that as a guide. If anything, I could probably, well, I could probably shrink this finger a little more. Shift H. And the little finger could probably be a little smaller too. Shift H. Okay. And it's not looking too bad. At this point I'm going to go and Shift S to save this object. And if you join me in the next video, we'll carry on with the hand. We'll get the palm finished and we'll start building the thumb. One thing that's not quite right here is we've got quite a square palm going on here. We've got the fingers finished, but we need a little more detail in the palm. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select a few polygons across the palm, use the Bandsaw Pro tool just to add another slice. Push return key to drop Bandsaw Pro. Okay, so this gives me a little bit more detail to work with here. Okay, I'm also going to take these polys here and H for stretch them in a little, because your palm tends to be quite, so it rounds in to your wrist. Okay, now I'm probably going to put another slice here, another Bandsaw Pro, just add a little more detail in here, maybe another one in here. Okay, just to really give me some stuff to play with in here. Now what I want to do is I want to grow the thumb out, and to do that it's fairly far down, so I'm going to say about here. I'm going to use these 4 polygons as my starting point to build the thumb from. So I'm going to select these polygons, and I can use the multi-shift tool in here if I want to. Multi-shift, click and drag up, and drag to the left a little, go Y for rotate, and I'm going to just bring it out a little like so. Okay, before I go too far, okay, now the thumb tends to be quite chunky, so I'm going to shift and right square bracket a couple of times, and I'm going to come in here and just mold this a little just to get it to the right shape. So what I want to do is I want to pull out some of the points in the palm just to fatten that out. That's where the base of the thumb comes from. It's got that quite big, thick, padded area. Okay. I'm also going to come in here and round these a little more. Drag these out. Okay. Drag these in just a tad. Okay. Drag these out. This out. Try and square this up just a little, like so. Okay, so I've got something that looks a bit more like that. Okay, that's a good start. I'm going to select these 4 polygons, and rather than using the multi-shift tool, I'm going to hit E for extend plus, T for move, and move it out to about, say about there. Okay, so it's there's my thumb about there. Okay, so now that I've got my thumb in place, or the start of my thumb I should say, what I'm going to do is unselect these polygons, use the knife tool, and I need to cut the extra knuckle in here. So there's going to be a knuckle about halfway down, about here. I'm going to right click to make a new thing, and I'm going to taper it as I did with the fingers. I'm going to right click to make one here and taper that one as I did for the fingers. Okay. Get point selection mode. Zoom into that a bit. Take that and go T for move, move it up. And I'm going to take that, T for move, and move that up, just to give me that nice crease in the thumb. Okay, now you'll recall that the fingers had a sort of a tip. I'm going to do the same for my thumb. I'm going to just adjust the points here, give myself this sort of nice rounded thumb tip, like so. Doesn't look too bad. Okay, if anything, might be it's not too bad. The thumb is usually pretty chunky. Okay, and the thumb does tend to sort of pull up at the tip, so I might take the points here, Shift H for size. I'll just thin those down a bit so it tapers a bit more. Maybe the same with the knuckle, just take it down a bit. Now your thumb does tend to, well my thumb in particular, does tend to sort of bend at the end, so I'm going to use Let's select that and go Bandsaw Pro, just to slice through the center there. Drop the bandsaw tool and go point selection mode. Go T, and I'm going to move it down just a little, just give myself a nice sort of curvature to my thumb there. Okay. Now, one thing I might do here is I might take these polys in the middle here. H for stretch. And stretch them down this way because you do have quite a like a web or a pad of skin between your thumb and your hand, and that's not looking too bad. Okay, the other thing your thumb tends to do, and I'm going to fix that here too, is it select the polygons, shift and right square bracket. I'm going to tilt this approximately, make sure I've got my thumb the right way, so the padding's on the side, approximately 45 degrees, because your thumb, if you actually look at your real thumb, stick it straight out, it doesn't stick straight out like that. It actually comes in on a bit of a 45 degree sort of like tilt, if it were. Now I don't want to tilt it 45 degrees all the way down, because if I do that, and I'll show what happens, go in the center and go, doesn't look too nice. Okay, it does that, and then I have to pull and poke and everything else. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a thing called fall off, and I'm going to use the rotate tool, hit the N for numeric button. You notice that the numeric options have a little control in here called fall off. If I click on here, I'm going to say linear. It lets me control sort of fall off of the tool. It says basically lets you scale the amount of rotation. Now I'm going to use a linear, which basically means I'm going to say if I right click at the tip of the thumb and I drag the mouse, it draws this fall off control, showing me where there's been no rotation here, 100% rotation here. Now it's the wrong way around, so what I can do is on the numeric panel I can click the opposite button just to flick it the other way around. And I want it to be softer rather than linear, so what I can do is I can adjust the curve or the strength of the fall off by adjusting these controls here to get more of a curve like that. Okay, I'm going to go in here and now I'm going to rotate. It just puts a bit of a twist on the thumb like that. Okay, it's going to be a nice smooth curve. Now it's not quite right, I'm going to undo that. Y for rotate. Do that again. Oops, wrong way. That again. Let's say about that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and I'm going to fine tune a few things in here. And that means basically using the drag tool and just pull this out. Okay. What I also want to do is I want to tilt the thumb down just a little. Y for rotate. N for numeric, if you've used the rotate tool, okay, and you've been playing with fall off, you need to go and turn it off if you don't want it anymore, otherwise it'll stick to it. And I say in here, rotate down like that. Okay, that's not looking too bad. I might go through and pivot it just a little like that. A Shift H, I might just bring it in a tiny bit. It feels a little bit big. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, if anything I can now come in here and do some fine tuning. And what I mean by fine tuning is just basically coming through and smoothing off things where it looks a little bit square, for instance like in here. Okay, like so. Come in here, I can drag a few of these out. Okay. And again, we don't need, some of these are sort of like sticking out, which is not a good look. Okay. Underneath, again, we put that big padding thing going on. I'm going to pull some of these up to really thicken out that old padding there where it should. Okay. And also you get a bit of a pad on the other side of your palm. So I'm going to use this as an opportunity just to pull some of these points up. Whoops. Okay, let's pull some of these around. Okay, nice sort of pad thing going on in there. A little bit high. Be careful though. Just a little fine tuning. Again, so I'm not doing this all visually. I'm not going to be too precise in what I'm doing here. I'm going to do it by eye until I'm visually happy with it. Okay, and again, if you need reference, you can always go download some reference off the net, or you could use your own hand as a guide. That's what I'm doing at the moment, as I'm looking at my own hand while I do this. Okay, you also tend to have a few raised bits on the back of your fingers here, or your back of your hand here. So I'm going to bring some of these up, just to help give me a bit more structure and look to my hand here. Okay. Okay. Let's have a look at that. I'm pretty happy with that. That's not too bad. If anything, no, I'd say that's looking pretty good. Okay, can always come and fine tune this later on. So at this point I'm going to go Shift S to save incremental and come back in the next video and we'll just finish this off. To finish the hand off, what I need to do is just add the wrist. So to do that I'm going to select all the polygons along the back here. Go E for extender, T for move, move them up, H for stretch and just stretch them in, E for extender, T for move, and move them out. Now the arm tends to be quite round and petite, especially the wrists on a woman. Okay, so I'm going to sort of round these a bit more. Okay, Control T for drag, and come in here and just sort of fine tune like I've been doing for most of the stuff as I've been going. Fine tune the look of this so it's sort of a bit rounder. Okay, there's a few points to drag around here. Okay. It's not too bad. E for extender, T for move. And I'm going to say that's my hand done and dusted. Now there's a lot of fine tuning you could do to this hand. I'll leave that up to you. Okay, obviously you got to watch for certain things like that's looking a little lumped out there. We don't really want that. The bottom of your hand and your wrist tend to meet each other. So what we might want to do is points. Select the points around here. H for stretch. Okay. Take these points, stretch those down, just to flatten those out a bit. Okay. And just take these points, Y for rotate. I'll just bend them in a bit like that. Okay. Now you can come in here and things such as this point here. You can see quite quickly that it's pinching in by the lines that are drawn in the wireframe mode. Just pull it out a bit like that. You can use the lines on the texture wireframe just as a guide to how things are looking. And again, I'll leave this up to you to go through and pull these points around and just sort of massage the hand as much as you think you need to, looking at like a reference such as your own hand, just as a guide, to make sure you're getting this shape nice and round and so forth. Okay, so now we've done that, let's put our object in the background. And obviously we need to stick the hand up here. So the first thing I want to do is I want to rotate the hand 90 degrees this way, so it's flat out here. To do that, simply place the mouse at the end of the hand in this viewport and hit the R key 3 times. R key will rotate clockwise 90 degrees. Okay, so each time you hit the R key, it rotates 90 degrees. So do it till it's like that. T for move. And I'm going to move it into place. Okay, I'm just going to make sure that it looks sort of proportionately right. Get the feeling that it's a little bit thin this way, so use the stretch tool just to stretch it vertically. Okay, Shift H, I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger because it doesn't feel like it's quite right. Okay, I'm going to use the rotate tool and just straighten that up, move that in a little bit further like so. Okay, now let's just compare them, put them together and see what they look like. That's not looking too bad. I think about the right size. It could be a little bit bigger perhaps, but again, you know, I'll leave that up to you. Now once we get the hand in place, we'll go to the multiply tab and click on mirror X to make 2 hands. And if we switch to texture, the body is pretty much done and dusted. Now the last thing we need to do to finish our character obviously is to put the head on. The head's probably the most complicated part of the entire process. So at this stage, doing a Shift S, we'll save our character, come back in the next video and let's get started and see how we model a head for our character. So I'll see you shortly. The last part of our character we need to model, of course, is the head. So in this video I'm going to start by creating a box. I'm going to create a box around the head like so. And I'll do one to the front of the head and pull it to the back like so. Now notice that the head doesn't perfectly line up in each viewport. Okay, so this sometimes happens because, you know, these drawings aren't always 100% perfect. So if I center that, well, it sort of doesn't quite look right. Okay, so I'm going to pick one of these and use it as my primary guide. So let's have a look. Let's use the side view. And so let's say the side view is going to be the size of the head. Okay, I'll make a box and I'll push return. Now what I'm going to do is go D for display, and under backdrop, bottom left, what I might do is I might just adjust the size, and I might just adjust this image slightly to oops, straighten that up to get it as close as I can to fit within this box area. Now obviously it needs to be a little almost there, almost there. That's pretty close. Okay, till it looks approximately the same to scale as that head. And there you go. Okay, and here I have sort of the head shape. Okay, now I'm going to use the knife tool. I should be center of the box, which is right here. It's close. It's not perfect. Let's go to the backdrop and let's adjust that picture a little more. Without sort of shrinking it too far. Yeah, it's looking a lot better. How's that? Pretty happy with that. Let's try that. Okay, Shift K. I'm going to knife down the center on the side view here, and I'm going to maybe make a knife cut down the middle at the front. Okay, what I'm then going to do is go Control T, and I'm going to, in the side view, sort of round the box so it sort of looks a bit more head shaped. Now notice the chin doesn't go up like a ball. You can say about there. Okay, so we've got something that looks a bit like that from the side. I'm going to go in and I'm going to take the polygons on each side like so. We go H for stretch. I'm going to stretch those down, and I'm going to have the center on the side here. I'm going to stretch those in. So I'm going to sort of round this a bit, because remember it's sort of like the body, you know. Select these points around the edge here. Sort of like the body, we need to rough it out so it looks at least organic, so it's sort of round. I'm going to select these points. I'll leave that center point unselected, bring them in just so I get this more ball type shape happening. So hit the tab key. Okay, got an approximate head shape thing here. Now, what I like to do is I like to come in here and say, well, if I select a couple of polys here and use multiply, Bandsaw Pro, I can cut another slice through here. Okay, forms a brow area. Also lets me sort of round things out a bit further. Switch to point selection mode. The nice thing about the bandsaw tool is that once it's done its slice, it leaves the point selected. So I get H for stretch. In the front, I'm going to just push them out to sort of round it a bit more. And inside, I'm going to push it that way. So we're starting to sort of sculpt the head shape in. Okay, let's drop those points. Okay, I'm going to repeat the same for here as well. And this sort of gives me sort of the nose area. So switch to point selection mode, H for stretch. Bring it out a tiny bit. Bring it out on the side view a tiny bit. Just to get roughly about the same. Now what I like to do is, I'm going to use the drag tool. I like to drag this up and push it out to where the nose should be. So it forms more of a, looks a bit more like a face type shape. I'm also going to just pull the eyes in a little, just to sort of shape it like that. Okay, so it looks a bit more head shaped, or head like I should say. That's not looking too bad. Now obviously the head's a bit pointy here, so what I'm going to do is in each side like this, I'm going to do a bandsaw down that. Okay, again point selection mode, go to the center, stretch it up just to sort of round that a bit better. I'm going to repeat the same for the other side, Bandsaw Pro, point selection mode, H for stretch, and just round it a bit further like that. Now you probably also want to do it in the top view. Okay, so I'm just going to go back here, the top view here, H for stretch, just to sort of make sure it's around this way as well. Okay, so now starting to get quite a nice sort of like head shape thing happening here. Now what I also like to do while I'm working here, so let's say, well, it's a little bit flat and angular here, so Bandsaw Pro that as well, H for stretch from the center, you know, something more along the lines of that, looks a bit better. And I'm going to repeat the same for the back half of the head. Point selection mode, H for stretch, and we'll just push that out a little like so. Not looking too bad. Now so I forgot another one. I'll reselect those and reselect these. Do the top view as well, just to push them out like so. Because just to keep everything nice and round and looking pretty sweet. Okay, I've hit the tab key. It's not looking too bad. It's looking head shaped at least. Now let's go and start adding the detail in. Well, the first thing I need to do is, well, it'd be nice to have perhaps some areas where the eyes will be, and that will be in these polygons here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these polygons, these four, and I am going to use the multi-shift tool, and by holding down the control key and dragging to the left, I can sort of get it in fairly close to sort of the drawing of the eyes in here. And then I'm going to just use the drag tool, and I'm just going to sculpt them sort of roughly based on the cartoon or comic style, the backdrop I should say, like so. Pretty good. Okay, I'm also going to say, well, let's take those 4 polys, H for stretch, just move it back on the side view here. Okay. You notice that it starts to pull out here. So what I'm going to do is I am going to Control T. Just drag these back a little. Put these back just around that a little more because that looks a bit better. Now, because I'm lazy, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this side of the head with the eyes and stuff on, and I'll push V on the keyboard. V stands for set value, and I'll say X, which is across this axis, set it to 0, which will crush that down. I'll push the delete key to delete those polygons, and I'm going to re-mirror that across the X with a mirror X button. Just saves me having to do that other side. Okay, so now I've got both sides of the eyes. Pretty happy with that. Okay, obviously need a space in the middle for the nose. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to split this down the center. So select through these 3 points and go Control B. And I can actually split there, but I don't really want to just split this small section. What I want to do, so I really want to split it all the way around. So let's pick those points and go Select Menu, Select Loop. Okay. In fact, I'll do it by hand because it doesn't always work depending on the flow of the geometry. And I'll go Control B, and that'll split it right in the center. Okay. And notice I forgot to pick one of the points. That's better. Okay, drop the tool. Just give me like a little bit of a break through the center there. It's not looking too bad. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the mouth. Select a few polygons here and go Pencil Pro. Select point selection mode. Fatten that out just a tiny bit. Tiny bit. Okay. Deselect a few points here. T for move. Move these back a little just to say this is where the mouth is going to sit. In here. Okay. I'm going to go in and select all these. Whoops. These 6 polys. Okay. And I'm going to go multi-shift. Click and drag to the left. Okay. Drop the tool. Go Control T for drag. Then I'm going to start sculpting the mouth in here. Okay, so I'm going to drag. Here's the mouth here. Down here. Drag this down, this down, this down. Okay, and I'm just going to sort of use the drag tool to roughly sculpt a mouth shape, like so. Okay, so this is where I'm going to have the mouth of my character. Notice that it's sort of pulled in a bit there. So what I'm going to do is select these points here, T for move, pull them out a little, like so. Okay, hit the tab key. Starting to get something here that's not looking too bad. Okay. Okay, obviously got a lot of geometry in here. And here we could actually turn this into the nose. For now I'm going to leave that as is. What I do want to do is I want to cut a slice down the center. So I select a few polys and get Bandsaw Pro. So I've got a nice slice down the center here. I'm going to do the old lazy thing again. I'm going to select half the head. The head with side of the mouth, it doesn't look too good. V, set value to flatten it, delete. And I'm going to go mirror X. Okay. Okay, so we've got a good base to work from now. So I've got this center point in here. Okay, now lips. Okay, I'm going to pull these up a little. Gives me a bit more control so I can get a bit more of a mouth shape going here. Okay, not looking too bad so far. Okay, a bit more feminine that way. Okay, I'm going to use the multi-shift tool again. Drag in. It's going to be a bit more geometry. And what I'm going to do, drop that tool, Control T for drag. In fact, no, I'm not. I'm going to deselect that. Go Y for rotate. I'm going to push this up just to round that bottom lip a bit more. H for stretch. And push that out. Okay. Just to sort of puff out this bottom lip a little more. Going to Control T. I'm going to just drag the corners of this inner section I've just cut in to the edge a bit more. Okay. Just to start forming the mouth a bit more. Okay, probably need a bit more geometry around the edge here because we don't have a lot here to define the shape. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select a couple of polygons here and use a bandsaw tool. There it is. Okay, Control T. I'm just going to drag these corner ones out just a little. Okay. Control T, just drag. No, we'll leave that in like that. And I'm going to say that doesn't look too bad. Okay. So at this stage, what I'm going to do is I'm going to save the head as I have it here. So File, Save Incremental. I'm just going to save the character with the head in. And I'm going to carry on in the next video, just adding more detail and building the head up. So I'll see you shortly. Let's continue by building the nose for the character. So to build the nose, I'm going to select these 8 polygons on the center here. And you can sort of see they're about in the right position for the nose in regards to here. And I'm going to hit E for Extender Plus just to make some more polygons. What I'm going to do is go H for stretch. I'm going to stretch these in and to the center just to tighten them up. And I'm going to hold down the Control key and place it out here. Click and drag to the left with the Control key held down. And then I'll just constrain that stretch tool just to give us that petite little cartoon style nose. Okay. Now may need to sort of round that a bit more. This is a lot smaller down here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the stretch tool. H for stretch. I'm going to stretch it down A bit more like that. I go Control T, and I'm just going to round a few things here, like so. Pull them out. Take a little time just to sort of soften things up by pulling points around, like so. It's looking a little bit better. Okay, so there's the nose done. Pretty easy, and it doesn't look too bad. Okay, at this point I'm going to File, Save Incremental, and I'm going to continue the next video. Let's finish up the mouth while we're here as well. We've got the basic mouth shape sorted, but maybe later on I want to make this character talk. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select these 8 polygons in the middle. I'm going to go H for stretch, just to flatten it in a little more. Go E for extended plus to make some more polys, and I'm going to move these polygons back into the mouth just to make, and up maybe a little, just to make a bit of a gap between the lips. Okay. I'm going to go E for extender again, H for stretch, and I'm actually going to stretch these upwards because your lips tend to curl in like this. And across a little, just to widen it a bit. E again for extender plus, and I'm going to make the polygons a lot bigger with the stretch tool. Okay, so drag these back and stretch them out. Use the drag tool, and we're going to form the inside of the mouth like this. Okay, pretty good. Okay, E one more time, T for move, and let's move it back, and that forms the inside of our character's mouth. Pretty simple. Now that we have that, let's have a look at around the mouth, see what we can do just to improve the appearance of the chin and all these other areas here. So I'm going to select these polygons around the chin, T for move, move them down, move them forward, just to bring the chin out a bit. Okay, like that. And I'm going to go in here and say, well, I want to round that bottom lip out a bit more, so let's select edge selection mode, because sometimes it's easy to use edges. Select these 4 edges like so, T for move, move them down and back in, just to help bulge that lip out a bit more. Okay, now need a bit more geometry in here, so what I'm going to do is select a couple of polygons in here, use Pencil Pro. Okay, just to put another slice of geometry around, and let's go edge selection mode, select these 2 edges here, T for move, and pull it out just to fatten and define that bottom lip. Looking a lot better already. Okay, do the same with the upper lip here. Take these 2, going to move them up, and maybe back just a tiny bit, like that. Just add a tiny bit more definition in here, and possibly take this center edge here, T for move, and just move it back. Add that little cleft type thing, that little sort of indent there. And that's not looking too bad, it's looking a lot better. Okay, what I might also do while I'm here is get point selection mode. Maybe select these 2 points, here and here. H for stretch, go in the center and just sort of widen them a little to widen that out. Okay, and I'm pretty happy with that. Now I might want to animate this later on, so I could leave the mouth open, or what I could do is I could select the bottom lip like that, go shift and press the right square bracket to select some more polys around the edge. In fact, I'll deselect that and go Y for rotate, and I could just close the mouth a little more. Could probably do the same with the top lip. Y for rotate. I know. And just close the mouth a little bit more than it was. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. So I'm going to go Shift S, save incremental, and join me in the next video and we'll continue. Let's take a look at the eyelids next, and what I'm going to do, or the eye sockets I should say, is we'll work on both of these at the same time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on a tool called the Symmetry tool. You can find that next to the polygon selection button at the bottom. And what it does is it looks for points and polygons that are exactly the same on both sides of the x-axis. Okay, so just be aware that symmetry only works across the x-axis. And what it does is it looks at what you do in the plus x side, and you can tell which is the side by looking at the letters on either side of the viewport, plus x, minus x, and it basically mirrors it to the other side. So what I can do, if I go Shift A, which means zoom to selected or fit the select into the viewport, it'll select the side that we edit, which is a plus x. Okay, or I should say it'll zoom into it. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through and gently sort of round this a little more. Okay, and then the side view here, I'm just going to pull a few things back to flatten these down a little. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Then I would hit E for Extender Plus, which would just make some extra geometry. And what I might do in here is I might just shrink, just stretch to shrink it in the front view here. Kind of pull this back just a tad, just to add a bit more shape to that. Now, you notice that the shape changes. It's sort of like the arm of the body when we were modeling that before. Hold down the Shift key and tap the right square bracket just to double select that. Control T for drag. And I'm just going to fine tune that, because as we slice and dice with the tools in here, things are going to change. Okay, not looking too bad. Okay, might pull some of these bottom ones out just a little, because they tend to puff out into your cheek there. Okay, that's not looking too bad. Okay, I'm going to drop that for now. Just wanted to get that definition in there. I'm going to do a bit of a check right now, because there's one thing I did note, and that as we work, you sort of, after a while, you start losing a little bit of this proportional thing. It stops sort of matching the back, or your background image, I should say. So just want to do a bit of a check as you go. Just make sure that everything is still in proportion. You notice that it's a little bit out of proportion. Use the stretch tool and turn off the symmetry tool for a sec. Okay, and I'm going to drag that up just to bring that chin up. The stretch tool. Okay, and I'm going to drag this from the nose forward. Okay, whoops, be careful with the L tool there. Okay, and in the front view, go to the center, narrow that down a little. Okay, just to make sure it matches that background plate fairly closely. drag that up like so. Okay, it's very easy to keep working on something and working and working and working, and eventually you sort of forget that you had a background image to work with. So you've got it roughly about right. You might be working on the eyes and going, yeah, looks right, looks right. You zoom out and suddenly realize that the head's become a little bit too big, and that sort of thing. So it's worth sort of having a bit of a stop at some point. Whoops. Select these polygons, H for stretch. Okay, and sort of push those up to round that a bit further. Okay, one thing I notice is that these points here don't seem to be very round across the top here, so I'm going to use the stretch tool on these points. Oops. Just first of all push them out just a tad. That sort of helps. Doesn't look too bad. Take these points here and these points here. In fact, I'm going to turn on the symmetry tool for a sec. Go Y for rotate. Down here I'm going to just pan those out a little too, just to get a bit more roundness to the front view there. Okay, and that's looking pretty good. Okay, I noticed that turn the symmetry tool off. The sides of the face here and here tend to be a little bit wide. It's got a bit of a square jaw there, so use the stretch tool. And in this maybe the side view, click and drag up, and in the front view, click and drag inwards just to narrow that face a little bit. Try and get rid of that stocky sort of look. I'm pretty happy with that. That's not looking too bad. Okay. Just have a double check around here, make sure everything looks nice and smooth. It's not too bad. There are some things like this area here could probably be pulled around. Okay, some things in here could probably be pulled around to look a bit smoother and so forth. But at this point, I'm saying that's not looking too bad. Got the eye sockets sort of in place. Now, sometimes what you do in this sort of character or this sort of style of character is you'll actually map 2D images of eyes on. So you could model some real eye sockets in here, or you could leave it at this point and then use like image maps or textures to map some eyes on there. So at this point I'm going to go Shift S to save incremental, and I'll come back and we'll continue. Let's continue with the just fine tuning of the head while we go. Just notice that there's a few things such as the nose and the mouth all seem to be a little bit too far forward. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to polygon selection mode, and I'm going to select around the mouth and around the nose like so. We'll go teeth and move, and I'm going to move these back to about there. Feels a little bit better. Okay. Again, just little fine tunes. Nose pokes a little too far. I'm going to move that back a little. About there. Okay. Okay, notice that the face blends in there just a little bit too closely. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use edges selection mode. I'm going to select these two edges here, T for move. I'm going to move these back as well. Flatten that out just a little bit more. Just check that looks alright. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select these two edges. Okay. The next one's out. T for move. I'm going to move these forward a little to bring the cheekbones out. Okay. Nice soft fuller face. I'm also going to stretch them. Use H for stretch. Hold down the control key. Just about here and stretch it. Drag to the left. It'll just pull them out on each side to help flatten them out a little bit more. Okay. It's not looking too bad. Okay, what I might also do is I might just take these polys down here, use the drag tool, move that forward a bit, back a bit, move this just back a little as well. Okay, again I'm just going to be just gently fine tuning a few of these things just to get Nice sort of smooth, more natural looking face out of this thing. Okay. A little bit nicer. Okay, pretty happy with that. Now, what I want to do next is perhaps build in an ear. The ear will probably sit where these polys are. Okay, so join me in the next video. We'll look at building the ear onto this character. So don't forget to go Shift S, save incremental, and we're back shortly. What we need to do next is build a set of ears. Now the ears tend to line up with the eyes here, so and they're usually about the center of the head. So I'm selecting these 8 polygons, 4 on each side, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the multi-shift tool, under the control, click and drag to the left to inset that a little, and drop the tool. And I need to just generate some geometry to start the ears from. So I'm going to H for stretch, and I'm going to click and drag these back. In fact, they should be down a bit, shouldn't they? Okay. I'm going to use the drag tool, Control T, and I'm just going to drag some of these around to like a starting position to grow the ears out from, something like that. Okay, so I want the ears to come out of this location. Now, lucky for me, this is a cartoon character, so I can get away with quite simple ears. Photo real human ears get a little bit tricky to model because you've got all that sort of like detail and shape sort of inside the earlobe itself. In this case, I'm going to keep it pretty simple. So now I've gotten that, I'm going to go E again for extender, and I'm going to turn on the symmetry tool because I'm going to do both at the same time. I'm going to go to the rotate tool, and I'm going to go sort of to the front of the ear here, now in the top view, like so. Click here and drag to the left, just to tilt that out. Okay, a little bit more. Okay, this is where the ears are going to grow out from. Okay, and I'm going to, in the front view, I'm also going to rotate a little to start them like that. Okay, as I go, okay, I need to fine tune things, so I'm going to hold down the shift and hit the right square bracket, Control T for drag. Just going to come here and fine tune a few things just to soften things out. Okay, now I do this because as I go, the last thing I want to do is spend ages trying to get this thing working, and then find that I've gone and let's undo a couple of those. Find that I've got to go and undo a whole pile of really messy, weird modeling flaws caused by the fact that it just got funkier and funkier as I kept sculpting things. That's the whole reason behind this. Okay, not bad. Okay, shift and left square bracket will sort of contract the selection, and I'm going to go E for extender again. Now what I'm going to do this time is go Control T, and I'm going to drag out just these back points. Now to basically bring out like a lobe area, this area here. Try and get it as round as you can get it, you know, like so. Okay, and again remove the picture in the background just as a guide at the moment. So I'm going to turn on symmetry as well, and we're going to plus X side. I'll pull some of these forward a little. Now, not the front ones. Now, don't touch the points here, here, and here. I'll show you why in a second. I'm going to pull these ones out. Okay. Pull them out a little bit. Like so. Okay, so it just pulls the yellow out. Drop the drag tool. I'm going to go M for merge points. So it should say 6 points eliminated, and what it's done is it would have merged the points at the front here. Now you notice that when I turn off symmetry, the symmetry tool didn't quite work because these were slightly different from each other. Okay, let's pull these out manually. Okay, what that's done is it's merged the points, kind of created like a lip here. Okay, but joined them here, here, and here, so we don't have like a ring of polygons here. Okay. Now select them all again, and I'm going to go E for extended plus, H for stretch. I'm going to drag them in from the side view there, just to create the inner ear region here. Okay. Control T for drag, and I'm going to just okay, drag some of this around. E for extended plus again, H for stretch. I'm going to stretch it in and down. Okay, in the front view I'm going to sort of stretch it inwards a little, just to indent it a bit, like that. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do, Control T. Okay, is I'm going to just bring out a little nodule down here. Okay. Okay. Shift right square bracket and shift right square bracket twice. And I'm just going to fudge these a bit just to tidy things up. Okay. Just round these a bit, give it more of an ear shape going on here. Okay. So something that looks kind of like an ear, like that. Okay, select these point selection mode. Select these inner ones, H for stretch. I'm going to stretch them outwards in the front view here. Okay. Now you've got to be careful because you notice that I've kind of cut the ears and sort of pushed them back in too far, so they're cutting with the polygons underneath. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go edge, select a couple of edges here, and I'm going to go select loop. I'm going to go to the other side, the other area I should say, select a couple of edges, go select loop. Okay, use the symmetry tool. Now even though these aren't symmetrical, if you have a selection on both sides, whatever you do on the plus X side will be mirrored to the selection on the minus X side. Pull this out a little, like so. Okay, not looking too bad. Okay, it's not fantastic here, but it is cartoon character after all, so we can get away with a few indiscretions here. Same with the polygons on the inside here. Whoops. Come on. Okay, again, it's because we've cut through. So what we do on the other side here. Okay, again. Select these. Symmetry's on, T for move. Push those out a bit. Okay, just to get those out, like so. Okay, so first of all we got to just double check that. It's looking alright. Control T. Okay, turn symmetry off. Symmetry can be nice, and it can also be a pain. Other times I never use it. Okay, I'm going to pull this out just to fatten this up. Oops, got to be careful that you don't drag the wrong things. Okay, I'm using the symmetrical view to do this. Okay. Spread these out a little. Okay. Okay, just to give myself sort of cartoony little layer. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fix one side. Because again, I'm sort of a bit lazy. I don't like to spend a lot of time fudging around trying to build two perfect ears when I could just get one side looking sort of right. Okay. Again, you can spend a little more time on this ear if you want to. For now, I'm going to say that that's not too bad as a starting point. Gives me the basic geometry in place, so I can always come back here and I can fine tune this geometry. Okay, so I quite like that as a starting point. I'm going to take this side of the head, okay, and I'm going to select half of it. Okay, now take care that you don't have symmetry turned on, because then you could select some polygons you didn't want, and B, that you make sure you unselect any polygons that you don't want, like that. Go V, set value, delete, and then we use the mirror X tool again under multiply, mirror X, just to mirror it, to save us having to go through and fix the other ear. Okay, so we've now got two ears, which I'm going to go through and I'm going to turn symmetry on because everything should be symmetrical now. Looks pretty good. Select the ears. Okay, just those parts. T for move, I'm going to move them forward so they're sort of a little bit closer, matched to the picture in the background. They're not exactly right, but again, the picture in the background is more as a guide. Okay. Okay. Watch out for things such as this, where things sink in. You can sort of see it here. Okay, just go through, fine tune them. Okay. Now also watch out for, let's turn on this texture wire. Watch out for things such as you don't get the cheek area too skeletal. Okay, what I've done here accidentally, so I'd push these out too far. Put these two back, so these slight indents here, so looking very thin and very skeletal. Okay, so all I need to do really is Control T, drag, and pull these cheeks out a little more, just to fatten it up. Puffs out, gives a bit more fleshy feel to the face. That's a bit better. Okay. Okay. At this stage, I'm going to go Shift S to save that. And like I said, we can come back and clean up those ears later on if you want to. but we'll move on and we'll see how we go to continue and try and get this head complete. So I'll talk to you shortly. Let's extend the neck out from the bottom of the head. Now the neck would probably come out, what am I going to say about these bottom 8 polygons here. Yeah, so that looks pretty good to me. Check with the picture, so it comes out, yeah, about that right, and about that looks right. Go E for extender, and I'm going to go H for stretch. Stretch it in, stretch it in, stretch it down. I'm going to go Control T, and I'm going to just try and round that a bit. Now, could be a little tricky. That's not too bad. Try and so at least get it sort of semi-round, even if not perfectly round. Just to soften again, it's that whole organic look thing. Just making sure that the shape and form, you know, move it down maybe a little. E again, T for move. Okay, move it down. T for move. Sorry, E. One more time. T for move. Move it down. And there's our neck for our character. Okay. Let's just do a quick check. See how it looks in comparison. It looks like the head's a little high up. Perhaps in this shot. Okay, so I may have to come in and edit that. Yeah, the head looks, well, it could be right. Okay. But it's not looking too bad. Okay, so pretty happy with that. I'm going to go Shift S, save the object incrementally. Now the last thing we probably need to do for this head is just build it some like a hair, or some hair that sort of hangs from its head, obviously. So we'll do that in the next video, and I'll see you soon. Now when we did the ears, we did that, we didn't move some of the points, so we did a merge points, and it combined some of them to give us this nice sort of like lip thing happening here. Okay. Now when we did this, what it did was, because it had extended some more polygons around here and it merged the points, it basically flattened out what were essentially a couple of polygons that we did have here. Now these polygons didn't disappear, but what happened was when we merged the points, they become what we call garbage polygons, or 2-point polygons. They get left behind. Now we can tell that these are there because if we tab to unsubpatch the head, we'll hit the tab key again. It tells us only faces with 3 or 4 vertices can be converted to subpatches. Now you probably think, well, that doesn't make any sense because, hey, look, there are only 4-sided polygons all the way through this mesh. Well, actually there aren't. If we go to polygon selection mode, click on statistics, we'll go down here and we'll see 1 vertex and 2 vertices. Well, next to 2 vertices it says num, 4, means there are 4 2-vertice polygons. A 2-vertice polygon basically being a line between 2 points, and that was created by that merge operation we did there. So if I click the plus next to 2 vertices, okay, it selects these funky looking lines in here. Okay, these are the 2-point polygons that are left behind. Well, let's just delete those because they're basically garbage and we don't want those in our model. Okay, so as you go, if you do a lot of merge operations, or doing a lot of smooth shifts and multi-shifts and things like that, you may generate a lot of these. So it's a good idea at some point in your modeling process to sort of stop, check the statistics for the polygons, and make sure there's no 1 vertex and 2 vertice polygons left over. If there are, select them, delete them, because it's just going to cause problems later on. Okay, don't forget to save the object, and we'll carry on.